Hi, it's Laura Butler, and I may look a little different today because I'm running the show solo. Uh, my business partner and life partner, Dave Butler, is on site with a client today. So I'm happy to jump in. And one of the things that I thought it was time to bring up and talk about today are topics that can focus on women's leadership. And what I saw yesterday come through from an organization called Linkage was focusing on this topic. Why do women hide their success? And I thought it would be a great time for our Wednesday live stream, especially since it's me today, that this would be a great topic for us to focus in on. And the findings from the study, I thought, were really telling. And one of the topics I focused in on when I'm coaching women, especially those aspiring to become leaders, is the confidence discussion. There's a book called The Confidence Gap. There's tons of literature out there. So the good news is the findings show that confidence in women is up. But what we're going to focus in on today is taking a look at those issues that seem to be down. It's like a seesaw. There's the confidence is up, but it's not balanced. So there is still something missing. So the idea will be to dive into some of these topics here and what they showed in the results of the study is that as the confidence is up, and 70%, that's a really good number, report that they feel more qualified than men. And by the way, these topics are not negating the fact that women cannot operate and lead without partnership from male allies. So keep that in mind as we discuss these various topics. And 58% say they feel confident in talking about the position they're in or on a more senior level. But what is down is they don't promote, they don't tell the stories, they don't share with their leaders and their peers what their success looks like. So what's missing there is the fact that women leaders who are confident, who are showing up, who are taking on these bigger roles, are not role modeling for those who are aspiring to step into leadership in the way that they can understand how to do what they've just done. So the question I have is this: 66% say they are perfectionists in how they approach work. So the feeling is that we have to be perfect to celebrate the fact that this issue with confidence is higher. I'm not quite sure. And 81% say that all of this is sort of unrealistic in terms of how they see and report the fact that they say yes to things that they don't have to say yes to. So and the other thing I would add to this that I've seen women do is there's a constant flow of apologizing for success, apologizing for the assumed failure or challenge when it's not necessary. So the biggest piece that I've heard women leaders tell me is that the idea of looking at the number of times they say I'm sorry is really interesting and telling, and it's become something they feel that has become more habitual than necessary. So just keep an eye on that for yourself. As we go through diving into a little bit of understanding what may cause these numbers and these statistics, what I'm going to be introducing is something, if you've been on our live streams before, you may have heard us talk about our tool, our assessment tool, motivational tool of choice, which is the Birkman Method. And what I'll try to do is overlap so that you can understand how these scores and how this approach can help kind of insinuate itself into the conversation of relationships and working with others. So this slide is my story. So this will show, and I'll describe what I mean by my story at a high level. And we look at the left side, it's the Birkman map. So if I look at this asterisk, which is right here, for me, the passion, what I gravitate towards, what I love to do, it's not necessarily what I'm good at, but I love it. Fortunately, I think it's certainly leveled out over the years that I love it, and I've also attained skill because I've been working at it for a number of years and because I've loved it so much. So blue is where my color is, my asterisk is, and that means creativity, means strategy, big picture topics. Somebody shared with me yesterday, which I thought was a great way to describe the blue passion, is the solar system. It's beyond. It's up in the stars and at that level. My strength, which is in Birkman language, is usual style. It's also describing our most effective, most productive way that we show up. So I show up in green, meaning I'm very collaborative. I like to tell the stories. Ask my kids, they'll tell you they've heard stories 100 times, the same thing. But I really enjoy the storytelling component to getting behind the nuances of this work. And that is a strength of mine. I love to lead workshops, which thankfully I do repeatedly. And it's a great way to capitalize on my strengths. The uniqueness of Birkman is what I'm describing next, which is, you can't see it here, but it's a circle and a square together. The circle represents our motivational needs, and the needs are the only, what we found, the only assessment that addresses needs is Birkman. And Dr. Birkman, who was the founder of Birkman over 75 years ago, described when he was one of his last interviews before he died, he was asked by the interviewer, what's the biggest takeaway for you with your work over the years? And he said, I have to say that I'm most proud of the fact that I've been able to give people the gift of needs. And I couldn't imagine saying it any other way. That gift, so people see me here. What they don't know is I need deep blue. What does that mean? I need time alone. So the contrast, I show up, ta-da, and I'm on the stage, great. But when I'm done, I go back to my cave. And I can't wait to get some recharge time, be on my own, and be able to step back into that green space if I need to. The square represents stress behavior. So if I don't take the time to satisfy that blue need, what will show up is my blue stress behavior. And that looks like getting lost in the weeds of trying to find a way to get that time met. And I get very stressed because I haven't given myself the amount of time that's necessary to finish a project, let's say. The other colors, red has an interest in action. Yellow has an interest in other pieces that go along with this, but with each of the colors. But for now, generally speaking, metrics, analytics. Blue, as I said, is big picture design, and green is the story, the relationships, the collaboration. Over on this side is something called Birkman interest, and you'll see a percentage score. So for me, I would be looking at anything that's a 70 or up that almost becomes a need and something that I need to be paying attention to, that I'm doing enough of these things because it's what I love to do. Musical, I'm basically a frustrated rock star, but I don't get a chance to do that. But I do lead and run workshops. So that to me is like a conductor, a musical conductor. I love to persuade and get people to see my point of view. The artistic component goes along with the blue interest, where I enjoy the idea of creating something that looks good, either with graphics or in my home for that matter. Literary is, the gift is being able to see a typo from a mile away, but have it flow well, have it read well. And then social service is a portion. What I love to do is be able to give back and help others. So then what we move into, and I know you can't see this, but that's okay. This represents what is a part of beyond the Birkman map and the Birkman interests. We have a series of scores called the Birkman components, and we won't have time to go into all of these. But I thought, based on the results of the linkage study, I chose one component to align with and have a deeper dive into. And that one is self-consciousness. And self-consciousness is one of the scores that I think affects the idea of this perfectionistic nature. The why do we say we're sorry when we don't need to say we're sorry? And self-consciousness is the use of sensitivity when communicating with others. It may be small group, one-on-one, but how do we look at the way that we're in the relationship in terms of communication? Is it some people are more short and objective? Other people are, take longer to get through a communication piece and are more sensitive. So if we look at how you describe it and how you would discuss the score based on some of the things from the study that we saw, is how do you discuss sensitive issues? What's the preferred way that you communicate? How do you give and receive feedback? How you believe you should show respect? Your comfort level around superiors, and how purposeful and intentional are you in the things that you say? So when you think about it, at work or with relationships in your life, for example, these are big factors that will play a role in all of the things that we saw in the linkage study, but certainly relationships overall when you work with others and your teams and other leaders. So the higher scores may be tactful. People with high scores have self-monitoring awareness. So they're aware of how their self is received. How are they coming across when they communicate with others? Sensitive to the subtle reactions, the ebb and flow of the conversation. Deliberately choose what is said. So they think first and then respond. Respect positions and power, and open up in one-on-one conversations. So this is the higher scores. Then the lower scores are going to be considered more candid. So when we think of how do we boost our confidence, how do we speak up? When you think about your relationships with others, and if you're involved in small group one-on-one, as I said, how do you respond? How do you listen? How do you react? So the people with the lower scores have minimal self-conscious feelings. So it's not the score, even though it's self-consciousness, it does imply some self-conscious behavior. But I always say it's consciousness, the way that we are self-conscious. So be direct, matter of fact. They may appear clear, non-evasive. They get to the point. a little easy, a little quicker than the ones with the higher scores. And moderate scores may be dependent upon what the situation provides. And like we talked about before with situational leadership, they exhibit behaviors of high and low. So sometimes they're going to be a little more sensitive, and other times they're going to be a little more objective. Alternate between candid and being tactful. Have a different style in their work and personal lives. And then we go to that gift that I mentioned before, that Dr. Birkman mentioned, the need. So this is the, for self-consciousness that we'll talk about today. Needs are most hidden. So if we don't know what our needs are, how can we expect other people to know? So it's a great opportunity, if we know what these scores are, to be able to sit down and have a conversation and say, I'll be much more effective if some of these things are addressed, such as if your needs are higher, you'll take a more tactful approach. So feel encouraged and validated. So let's say you're a high need self-consciousness individual, you might be working with a leader who's low. Well, they don't understand the fact that you seem to need this respect. You seem to need to be told every now and then, great job. And it doesn't need to be over the moon with praise, because then we don't believe it. But if it's enough so that it keeps the higher scores engaged and connected, then it's a win-win. And when we talk about these scores of high or low, it doesn't mean that if you're high, you're going to jump to low automatically. And if you're low, you're going to do the same with high. It means moving the meter a little bit and just stepping in the shoes of somebody else who may be a different score. The lower need needs others to be direct. Don't beat around the bush. If it's going to be praise, it's got to be super brief, because they won't believe it at all. Straightforward corrections, they don't like flowery responses. It's not something they need. This will drain their battery, as you see here in the graphic. And then there could be the situational needs, which shifts. So that's when it's really crucial for anybody who has these shifting needs, who has that moderate score, to be able to tell some people that they're working with, this is me, and this is how I'm going to be more effective in my relationship and how we can work together better. And then if we don't get the need met, one thing that we will definitely see, we don't know the needs, but we see when needs are not met, then stress behavior will show up. So the stress behavior represents reactive, unproductive behavior. And we all know when we've seen people who are in their stress behavior and we don't know how to help them, the first thing we can do is, if they've got their needs information, is help them identify what those needs are so that you can share it and have a conversation about it. And before I go any further, I wanted to thank people who are watching live. And if you have any questions, please let me know, and add a comment and add a message, and I will certainly answer as best I can. And if you're listening on the recording, you can also leave a comment, and we can certainly answer thereafter. So stress behavior could be evasive or harsh. It's always unproductive. It's your frustrated behavior. It's most seen, and it always happens when your needs aren't met. So the stress behavior with high scores could be evasive. So people with high scores may be embarrassed or shy. They may overestimate others' awareness. They might think that the world is looking at them, and when in fact that's not the case, but they feel that way. They may become overly sensitive to imagined criticism. So they're the ones where if you're low and you're giving a high self-consciousness stress behavior person the criticism, it's always best to say, is this a good time? I'd like to sit down and have a conversation with you about, the some ideas I have. So it just kind of softens the blow a little bit. And then if you're the higher and you want to talk to somebody who's lower, just be very direct. This is the best time for me. Is it good for you? And they'll say yes or no. What do you need? And then get right to it. No beat around the bush at all. And the harsher stress behavior with the low score stress behavior of self-consciousness, they may they underestimate how somebody else is feeling with their own version of self-consciousness. They may appear tactless when they may not be. They may not feel they are, but to somebody who's high, it looks that way. They may become impatient. Oh, that again? We have to go through that? So the idea is to kind of step back a little bit and wait for it, and then let the air settle a little bit, and then choose a time when maybe you want to bring up your own feeling on what's going on. Disengage when relationships require sensitive handling. So it may require that we spend a little more time, move the needle a little bit up into that moderate zone to be a little more compassionate and understanding of that individual's needs. And situational could be less predictable. So it becomes, even though we see the stress behavior, we're just not quite sure how that's going to show up or how we can help that person understand it and work with it. Become evasive or harsh depending on what the situational moment might be, and have shifting reactions depending on the situation. So the overview of the whole self-consciousness score and how you can actually utilize it in a way that's a little more effective is to create a story and put your own kind of response in here. And my usual behavior when it comes to the XYZ score, we talked about self-consciousness today. For me, I can frequently be seen as direct and straightforward. This is a strength because I get to the point. However, my need personally is I expect people to say, thanks, Laura. I really appreciate what you did there. In order to be at my best, I need to feel that I'm on track and give me the feedback I need to be successful and accessible. And then when I'm stressed, I may act out by maybe overdoing that need, maybe becoming more it may be necessary to tell me that I'm doing a good job beyond what it may necessarily be. It doesn't have to be that way. I should try to just kind of move it down to a moderate number, so I'm not feeling like I've got to have that pat on the back all the time, and understand that not everybody feels that that's the best way to go about it. So what needs to be done? This is a summary of, I think, taking the scores from the Linkage study, the results, and thinking through what would be the best approach. Now, we have done something at Work Life where we've created a woman's leadership program called Stand Up, Speak Up, Step Up, and Wake Up. So individually, people would receive the Birkman insights. And overall, throughout the program, we would be addressing those 4 questions. Who am I? What do I want? Where am I going? And how do I get there? My approach as a coach for these individuals, and either it's organizationally or individually, I think in the moment coaching is one of the best things we can provide as coaches, meaning when something flares up, when that need isn't met, when the stress behavior kicks in, call Laura. And I can kind of pull out the Birkman or pull out the information that is going on with the individual and help be the mirror, so to speak, to walk them through the outcome that could help them be a little more relaxed and successful. Organizationally, in order for this perfectionistic discussion that came from the linkage behavior in order to address that, and in order to kind of keep the confidence level up. What we did with the Women's Leadership Program is create experiences for women to have small circles of support. They're called self-identity workshops and circles. And what that does, and this comes out of the work of a brilliant thought leader, Herminia Ibarra, and what it does is creates experiences for women to work with other women first, get insights on how they've approached a challenging situation. What did they do to reach a certain level of leadership? And then once the safe space is attained, then have men come and experience what has been going on with these circles and contribute in terms of what they see from their perspective. So it's increasing self-awareness overall is what this conversation does. It inspires people who participate in these circles and get the coaching and support from each other to engage with leaders, colleagues, and clients more effectively, because they have that confidence increased, but also the feeling of, I don't have to say yes to everything, and I can stop apologizing. I'm pretty confident with what I'm doing already. Strengthen relationships to build enduring loyalty. So the partnership, the collaboration, the sharing, the transparency that can go on by creating these situations. I've seen women who have been a part of the program change cultures internally with organizations. So the idea of what are the next steps, to me, is all of this. Creating a leadership development plan. If it's not offered with your organization, then what you would do is create one on your own and share it with your leaders and with your teams, so that they get a chance to see, this is something that I can do for myself, and I can sort of insert the next steps, the resources that I need to grow. Build this women's group, that what we were just talking about, what I was just sharing, across the enterprise, so that the horizon broadens, as the picture implies. But it all comes down to answering individually these 4 questions for yourself. So that, I think, we'll cover in terms of just an approach into the Birkman Method, utilizing this 1 out of 9 component scores. And let me know if you'd like more on this topic. What are some of the questions, comments that you have? What are you doing as a woman in an organization, or as a man that helps a woman and as an ally, to support this in terms of development and growth? So thanks for listening. I will be sharing our video that kind of summarizes what we do. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again.
We're in it together.